Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Honestly Wrestling Sucks podcast, episode 2. Here we debate opinions presented by ourselves along with one submitted by you guys, which you've submitted via Instagram. The podcast is brought to you by Wrestling Republic, the home of the latest news, honest opinions, and debates in the home of professional wrestling. I'm your host, Ben, here as always, and today I'm joined by the no longer the Impact, the NXT UK reviewer for the Wrestling Republic, Dakota Cohen. How are you today, Kota?
I'm good, man. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great, yeah. Got a great show today. Of course, you guys have seen the title, slightly controversial headline for the podcast today, but we're going to get into it. And I can't wait to hear Kota's opinion on that. I'm going to kick things off. Honestly, WWE needs to decide if NXT is a developmental brand or not. Since NXT's creation, the idea behind the black and gold brand has always been for it to be a developmental territory with the aim to help prepare talent for the main roster. However, since NXT moved to the USA Network about a year ago, many people, including Triple H, have noted that the show is no longer a developmental show and is instead a third brand in WWE. Despite this, it's become clear over recent weeks that this is not necessarily the case, with talent being called up to Raw and SmackDown seemingly out of nowhere, including mid-storyline in the case of Tegan Nox. If WWE really do consider NXT the third brand, then call-ups should only take place during the draft or superstar shake-up. And if it does still consider NXT just a developmental brand, then that's fine. But they need to format it like they used to, where they build superstars ready for a call-up and do it in a natural way instead of seemingly out of nowhere like they've been doing in recent months. What's your thoughts on this, Kota? Do you agree?
So I see what you mean, and I think that the main event scene in NXT is they try to treat the main event scene as if it's Raw or SmackDown. But they have a lot of young talent like Carmelo Hayes, who just debuted against Adam Cole, and in that sense, they do use a lot of young talent or talent that isn't very well known to the majority of the audience. I think that one of the reasons that they try to get away with calling themselves developmental still, even though they don't use that term, is because the lack of ratings for the show. I mean, compared to Raw or SmackDown, it's not even it's less than half of what Raw is, and Raw's ratings aren't very good right now. So I think that them calling themselves developmental, in a sense of we bring in young talent and they still go up to the main roster, helps them a little bit. But I agree with you that it should just be one or the other and not trying to be both at the same time, because that can hurt the product. In that, well, if they're not developmental, then why are their wrestlers leaving and just like they don't have a replacement for them, basically?
Yeah, I agree there. And the fact that there's call-ups being out of nowhere as well, I think it might be the case of NXT. Inside NXT, they do consider themselves, and this is quite clear as well, like, of how they book themselves. For the most part, they do consider themselves a third brand. They book long term, and everything they do, every title loss, even, it's usually they have storylines down the line for them. But in the case of, like, it seems to be the main roster themselves, Vince McMahon and his team, who don't consider NXT the third brand. And instead, due to this, they simply send talent, they call talent up out of nowhere, not during a draft, not during anything, it just mid-storyline, like the Tegan Nox thing. I was really looking forward to the Tegan Nox storyline in NXT, the return. They built it up for weeks with a charging battery, and now she's gone. And I mean, seemingly the storyline's been dropped.
Yeah, she had that thing with Candace, because
Yeah.
Candace is the person who injured her, apparently.
Yeah.
So I thought that they were really going to go somewhere, maybe even like have a takeover match with each other. But I guess they're not going to lead to that.
I didn't actually see the entirety of NXT this week. They didn't feature it at all then, did they?
They featured Candace whenever Indy came out to help Dexter after he had the match with Santos, but that's the only way that Candace and Indy were on TV this week. And Tegan wasn't even mentioned, I don't believe.
It's frustrating. It really is. Shotzi Blackheart. I'm not annoyed at that at all. I think she's gonna be a great fit for the main roster. She's unique and everything. And I'm not even against Tegan's call up. I'm just against the timing of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to do call ups, that's fine. But wait, well, apparently they moved the draft for another month now until October. But
And
it's
Tony
completely.
Storm also. Storm was also in a feud with
Oh, of course.
Saray.
Yeah. Of course she was. Yeah. And it's very frustrating. And apparently they moved the draft now from the original. It was going to be originally in September. Apparently now it's going to be in October instead.
Mm-hmm.
So why, if they want to do call-ups from NXT or whatever, they should have just put the draft in September and waited a month. And you can have, then Tegan and Candice go at it to take over. Shotzi finishes up whatever. Well, she didn't have much going for her, but then it's in more of a natural way. Then Mandy Rose coming down to NXT, which she's done, that would seem more natural as well.
And Aaliyah going to Raw randomly.
Pardon?
Aaliyah went to Raw for Mandy Rose at NXT, so that was extremely out of nowhere.
I mean, Aaliyah hasn't done much in NXT whatsoever, unfortunately, and she's been okay. I think she's been very underrated at times, and she's now getting called up the second she's over. She's over with the CWC crowd as well, which is a bit of a weird one. Mind you, they'll probably turn on her in a couple of weeks, like they always do with everyone anyway. So maybe her getting called up isn't a bad thing. But Mandy Rose down to NXT, I'm not mad at that. I think that Mandy might surprise a few people. However, the big standout thing, but they did have an interaction saying this, is the similarities between her gimmick and Taya Valkyrie's gimmick. I've completely forgotten her name in Frankie Monet.
Frankie Monet, yeah.
That's her name in WWE. But they seem to acknowledge them meeting each other, so maybe they've got a plan for that. If they do, fair enough. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see where it goes. And Mandy did feel like a big deal when she appeared on NXT this week. So again, I'm not mad at that. Mm-hmm. Let us know in the comments, by the way, if there's any problems with the quality. Just because last week I know I was breaking up a little bit. I think I resolved it this week. But yeah, I just want to double check. I'm not breaking up for you, Coach, am I?
No, not at all.
Okay, cool, nice. But yeah, so that's my first opinion of the day. What's yours, Kota?
So let me get my my opinion up here.
Nice.
Okay. So I would say that my first opinion, honestly, WWE does listen to the fans. So I know that this is going to be like people are always going back to the day where Shane, Vince, Stephanie, and Triple H all appeared in the ring and we're like, we're gonna listen to the fans. And then anytime anything happens that pisses the fans off, they're like, they don't listen to fans. They just do whatever they want. And that's true at times because I don't think that any fans were asking for a Jackson Riker push. I don't think that any fans were asking for the Hurt Business to break up. However, there are events that have happened since then in every single year where it shows that they do listen to the fans. I mean, Cesaro had a main event match at the pay-per-view this year. I don't think that would have happened before 2018. Drew McIntyre, everybody was asking for Drew McIntyre to win the title. The match quality has very much improved for the most part, like on pay-per-views. Heel Roman Reigns, people have been asking for since the Shield broke up, basically. And those are just a few of the options. Even at WrestleMania this year, the two women that walked out as champions were both from NXT. They're not Charlotte Flair. They're not Asuka. They're not Sasha Banks or Bayley. They're new women. I think that a lot of the call-ups have been handled pretty well too. Like Riddle right now, he's extremely relevant. So I would say that, and you could always look back to WrestleMania 35 when you had Kofi, Rollins, and Becky walk out with the titles.
Yeah, I can completely see what you're saying there, and I agree for the most part. Now, what fans need to realize is that Vince McMahon is the head guy. He infamously likes to change things last minute when he doesn't like them, and historically has had a very good grip on what works and what does not work. In recent years, a lot of fans would argue that he's lost his touch a little bit, but at times he's still done things fantastically. But Vince, obviously, he does not look at social media, right? He doesn't. But the two things which he looks at, the two main things. One, crowd reaction. And people are like, oh, why aren't you pushing them? Why are you pushing them? admittedly, over the, in the past, people have had fantastic crowd reactions every week and not been pushed. But for the most part, in recent years, when people have had, fantastic crowd reactions, they've been given a push. People were complaining about Roman getting a push, yet he was getting the biggest reaction every night. Whether or not you were booing him, cheering him, he was getting
And
the
with
biggest
Cena.
reaction. Yeah. And as for, and the other thing he looks at, of course, is merch sales, which was a big thing. That, as well as, of course, the crowd being behind him, was a big thing for the Kofi push in 2019, I believe it was.
Yes.
And he looked big time on merch sales, all that type of stuff, right? So if you want somebody to get a push, buy their shirts, go to, obviously during the pandemic you couldn't, but now go to shows and cheer for them. And it more likely than not, it'll happen. And of course, you mentioned the NXT people now getting a push like fans wanted, younger talent. I don't know if that's him and WWE necessarily listening to the fans. I think that's them just working out they need to create new stars now, as it's gotten to the point where they have no option. And they ended up wasting a lot of people, and of course they end up releasing them. And a lot of those people they released had potential, but then of course they wasted them during it, and it all ended up being a bit of a disaster with them. So I think now with some of this younger talent, the newer call-ups, they don't want to do the same thing. They don't want to make the same mistakes behind it. But for the most part, I do agree. I think the WWE do listen to the fans the vast majority of the time. Now, of course, there's instances over the years where that's not been the case, but overall, it is for sure. Now, the problem is mainly, I've seen the comments. The problem is mainly that the booking, the simple booking and stuff. It's not that they're not giving fans what they want as such most of the time. It's just the fact it's bad booking. Like everybody wanted Seth Rollins to be champion, and then everyone hated his championship reign. So you can't say, oh, they didn't give us what we wanted. They gave you what you wanted, and then you didn't like it. The reason they didn't like it was because it was booked badly. I'm not saying it's the fans are fickle or something like that, like some people have said. And of course, we described the Capital Wrestling Center crowd the other week as. But yeah, I do agree with that opinion. I truthfully do. Right before we get on to the next opinion, P.S. has said here, Kota, give us your best Carl impression.
Oh man, I can't really do accents that well, but I'm just fella. That's as good as you're gonna get from me.
Oh gosh, yeah. Carl's not you, in case you haven't noticed this week. He'll probably be back next week, I believe. Now rumor going around this week, he quit. He didn't, but he left. I'll explain this story really quick. He left. We have a news writers chat, right, for everybody in Wrestling Public who writes news for us. And Carl left it this week. And this created a huge storm of people thinking Carl had quit Wrestling Republic. To the point where multiple people messaged me about it, and I was like, no, he's just not a news writer. But yeah, that was and this is just adding to the conspiracy now. But no, he'll be back next week as per usual. He's just got a few things going on this week. Now, next up, we're moving on to a fan opinion. And of course, every week you guys can submit fan opinions by Instagram. And we do it every Thursday morning usually. I throw it up on my story, and you guys can, decide. Here is our first one. This first one was submitted by one of our writers, actually. Instagram user hashpuppy64. And his opinion is, wrestling is way too predictable nowadays. Now, there's many ways you can interpret this, honestly. One way could be the dirt sheets spoil everything. The second way could be that things just aren't hidden enough and there's not enough surprises. Now, I'm going to agree with this on some levels and disagree with it on others. A lot of surprises, especially in the WWE on the main roster, do get out quite quickly. The biggest stuff people don't tend to spoil. I know one of the writers at Wrestling Inc. DMs people, like if they want to know, and that's how sometimes that gets out, like the Royal Rumble winner this past year. But in general, people like Sean Ross Up and people like that don't tend to spoil big moments. But smaller things such as, the return of Zelina Vega wasn't actually said about, was it?
It was said like 2 minutes before it happened. That was
right,
just
yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but for the most part, things like that are said about. But when it comes to AEW or even NXT, or even, well, especially New Japan, right, nothing gets out of New Japan. If a surprise is happening, it's not leaking. But AEW hide things well too, and I don't agree with this opinion, if I'm being honest, in general, because AEW, Impact, Impact pre-tape when they do stuff live, none of this stuff does get out, and I think there's a lot of things to get surprised by in wrestling. Now, one thing is WWE's booking in general is very predictable because they do the same storylines over and over again for the most part. And there's, not many shock title changes at times. But then again, we ask for longer title reigns, something fans wanted, leading on to our opinion from opinion a few minutes ago. But overall, I disagree with this opinion. What do you think, Coda?
So if we're talking about matches, I completely disagree because I don't remember the last time that I predicted a pay-per-view perfectly. Whether that be WWE, AEW, TakeOver, Impact, none of it. I can't remember the last time. Even a regular TV show. Like if you asked me to pick all the matches, I probably couldn't. So in that aspect, I disagree. But I can also see why somebody would have this opinion because if you talk about somebody like Roman Reigns, I don't think that anybody has seriously thought that Roman is going to lose the title in any of his defenses except maybe the WrestleMania one.
Yeah.
But I also think that in that aspect, because Roman Reigns' title reign or even Kenny's, because their title reigns have been so good, I don't think the predictability is necessarily a bad factor in that.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about predictability in terms of, like you were talking about the dirt sheets and the journalists, I can't exactly get mad at that because I'm majoring in journalism. But I could see why that would annoy people. But I do think that you could avoid that if you really wanted to. Especially if you just stayed off social media like a couple of days before a big event or something. Yeah, for the most part, I'd say I disagree because I think that predictability is more of a good thing than a bad thing because you can be. I mean, I don't think anybody expected Orton versus the Fiend at Mania to be as bad as it was, and that was, I would consider that unpredictable, and that wasn't a good thing. So I would say disagree that I think that predictability can be a good thing if it is too predictable, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about the Roman and Kenny title defense is, Kenny's is going to be Hangman. We talk about this point, it probably should be, right? Well, it should be. With Reigns, I hope that he drops it at like a pay-per-view, like Backlash or something. I want him to go on. I want him to hold it past Mania, but I hope he drops it in an unexpected match against someone like fairly new, and it'd be a complete shock. And it's that way really the next time then they do a long title reign like Reigns is, which hopefully they don't do for a little while after that, just because obviously they would have just done one then. People will, every title defense will think, oh, he could drop it here, he could drop it here. So that's one way to stop that, but I definitely don't think Reigns should lose it this weekend, for example. Yeah, and we'll get onto it a bit more later. A lot of people want Kofi to do a surprise win this weekend and win off Lashley.
I've seen that, and I'm pretty okay with that. Like, I don't have a problem with that at all. But the Lashley on Raw, where he threw the couch and he got all upset and whatever, that was pretty great. So I kind of don't want Kofi to win, but I would be okay with it.
It'd be a nice shock factor, though. I think fans would probably turn in him quite fast, because Lashley's also quite a bit over, I think. Well, we'll see anyway. However he is. Now, I thought of something earlier. It's kind of off topic, but kind of on topic. And I don't think this will happen for a single second. But Kofi wins the WWE Championship. The first match at Money in the Bank, man's ladder match. Big E wins, cashes in on Kofi once he's won, turns heel. Oh, that would be perfect.
That would be amazing.
They won't do it purely because of merch sales, purely because of the amount that the New Day make. But that would be.
New Day are always at the top of WWE shop.
They are.
Always.
Yeah. Their merch sales are off the charts. Him and Reigns are a New Day and Reigns are by far the highest merch sellers, followed by Becky Lynch, I believe. Who I'm actually even slightly surprised by how high her numbers are. But anyway, we'll move on now to the next, honestly, opinion. And this one's going to be controversial. Like anytime I talk about AEW, it's controversial. I of course know that Kota, you reviewed Dynamite this week, so you'll get to see. You can give me your feedback now, right? Honestly, AEW needs to stop overbooking Dynamite. Since the debut episode of AEW Dynamite in October of 2019, one thing has become abundantly clear, and that is that the episodes with less advertised for them, such as the final episode at Daly's Place, tend to be better than the packed specials such as Fyter Fest. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been undoubtedly bigger and better surprises on special episodes of AEW. However, more often than not, the in-ring action takes quite a bit of a hit during these episodes, and the matches don't live up to the hype, purely because of how many matches there are.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's crammed into a 2-hour time slot as well, which is never great. A perfect example of this is last night's episode of AEW Dynamite. And especially the week before, but last night we'll use as the example. Now, last night's show, from top to bottom, was thoroughly enjoyable and felt like one of the best Dynamites in a while. However, there were two things on the show which decreased the quality of it, possibly stopping it from being one of the best Dynamites to date. And these two matches are Wheeler Yuta versus Sammy G and Yuka Sakazawa versus Penelope Ford. And both these matches, I'm not saying they were terrible matches, they were fine. But they both could have been a lot better than they were if they were given more time. For example, to be honest, they should have only picked one of them. If they just put one of them on the show, gave that a little bit more time, and gave the other matches early on in the card a little bit more time, maybe if the main event a couple more minutes at the start, that would have been perfect. It wouldn't have felt overcrowded as much. It would just fit together, been a really easy watch. Because fitting 5 matches on a 2-hour show, and it's 5 big matches this is now as well, right? 5 big matches, so not 5, 6. There's 6 there, Ned. 6 big matches on a 2-hour show with also segments involved as well. It's just over the top. It's too much. You can't do it. It's putting pressure. It's putting, and just it feels almost a little bit stressful to watch because it's you've been just crammed with so much at once, and it really didn't sit down. Didn't sit well with me at all. Now, do you agree, Kota? I know you reviewed last night's episode. I know that you said the 2 weaknesses again were Sammy G versus Yuka Sakazawa and Sammy G versus Wheeler Yuta and Yuka Sakazawa versus Penelope Ford. But what are your thoughts?
So the women's match last night was not necessary. I mean, if they gave Yuka a better opponent, I'm sure that it would have been good. But the whole match just felt a little bit awkward to me, and I don't know exactly how long it went. But I do think that you could have evenly distributed that time that match went to a few of the other matches, like the main event and Sammy versus Wheeler, and even the opening match. But most of the time, AEW has 5 matches a week. 5 matches a week, I'm okay with, as long as maybe 2 of them go 7 to 8 minutes. That's pretty fine with me. But another problem that AEW suffers from, which is part of the overbooking problem. And they didn't do this really this week, but they normally have too many brawls. So the Cody and Malachi Black brawl was pretty okay with me.
Oh, I love that.
I thought it was fantastic. But they do too many brawls, so it didn't feel that unique to me. What the best part of the segment was what happened before the brawl, because they didn't even get to brawl for that long. They got separated pretty quickly. And normally the brawls are after the match. Like whenever the Hardy Family Office or whatever it's called, they tried to beat up Christian after the match, but Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus came out, which I think that the storytelling there has been fantastic with Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Christian, how they seem to be getting a little bit jealous because Christian is somehow working his way in there. But overall, I think that they do overbook their shows sometimes and try to do too much and too many segments and matches.
Yeah. Do you know? maybe not. I was about to say, do you know what I wouldn't be against booking wise for AEW? This might actually be awful, but one thing was, maybe I wouldn't be against is having Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt turn on Jungle Boy, and that of course eliminates a problem which I've spoken about so many times of Marco Stunt being the smaller guy in that group, and then that making Jungle Boy not look as much like the the top, the underdog. And they've had a problem with that from the start. But of course, then Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt together, it wouldn't work that much. So I was thinking, have Jungle Boy replace Griff Garrison.
Wow.
Going off Brody Lee's joke, but of course he's busy with the Varsity Blondes currently. But if they split them up, then maybe they could do something like that. That would be.
He just got signed, so.
Yeah, well, yeah, bang on as well. But Varsity Blonde's potential too. And AW's roster, I know, flipping heck. I know we spoke about it last week, but
so much young talent. Brian Pillman, not even 30 yet. I mean, I think that he's already close to world title material. So
yeah, it's. I don't know how they're gonna. I don't know how they're gonna use everyone. If I'm being completely honest here. And they have too many stars now. It's almost looking like, which is again leading to what I said last week about maybe adding some gimmick titles. But it's their roster right now is very, very good. And last night's show, it highlighted that to me. The fact that some people weren't even on the show, and it felt packed from the start, full of stars. And it's like these guys are becoming a real competitor now for WWE almost. And they're never gonna throw WWE in the dirt or anything like that. They're never going to harm WWE necessarily. Well, no, that's wrong. They could harm WWE, but they're never going to take the company down or anything like that. But still, WWE need to be careful now that AEW is offering more and more programming. The fans don't switch over from WWE to AEW and all their programming now. Because if it's just Dynamite, maybe that's not enough for somebody to watch. Maybe they want to watch a WWE as well, just because that doesn't give them all the wrestling juice they need for the week. But when they have
Rampage coming,
and of course Dark Elevation now is all right. Dark Elevation is quite good.
Yeah, my dad went to AEW this past week, and he said that Lee Johnson versus Jungle Boy was one of the best matches of the night, like between AEW and AEW Dark Elevation.
Yeah, there's a few bangers every week on it now. It still has the timing issue like Dark, and they try to throw so much on it, but it's far better than Dark was. I'll tell you that. Last night they recorded both, which is weird. But anyway, I mean, WWE need to be careful about that because people are like, 100,000 fans switch allegiance. That's nothing. That's easily across time. That's easily 100,000 fans switch over. That's well into the millions lost for WWE. Because think about how much money each fan spends on WWE and where it's merchandise. Right? If let's say 100,000 fans, stop watching WWE, and that's only if they bought WWE Network once or bought one T-shirt, WWE have lost 1 million. Now, so realistically, you're looking. Nearly every wrestling fan has spent over 100, right, on wrestling at least.
For sure, at least.
And maybe even to near 1,000. If you're looking at 1,000, 100, if let's say in their lifetime, every wrestling fan spends £1,000 or dollars on wrestling, that would mean if they lost 100,000 viewers, right, switching over, that's 100 million lost. It's, each fan, it's not going to ever properly harm WWE, but they do not want people to be switching over as much. They really do not. Now, what's your next opinion, Kota?
My next opinion is, honestly, Roman Reigns isn't the best storyteller in WWE. Now, I think that everybody assumes that Roman is the best. However, I think that there are two better. And I'm going to go with the one that isn't in WWE, technically. I'm going to go with NXT UK for a second.
Oh, okay.
Ilya Dragunov. Ilya, the past year, he lost to Walter last October in the NXT title defense. He went on this extremely long story about how he kind of lost himself and how he lost everything because he couldn't win that match. And in a couple weeks now, not this episode, but next week, he gets his rematch against Walter for the first time. But the storytelling throughout the past year has just been insanely good, with him going crazy after every single time he gets chopped in the back. Nobody can stop him. He gets disqualified for being too aggressive and whatnot. So that's the first person. The second person that's actually on WWE TV is Jey Uso. I don't think that Roman Reigns would be as popular as he is without Jey Uso. The first feud that he had with Jey after he became Universal Champion, he was extremely cool. He cut that promo after he won the Universal title. He was with Paul Heyman. Then, whenever the feud with Jey Uso hit, Jey Uso cut that amazing promo about how Gargano's in the top 5 for me. But Jey Uso cut that amazing promo about how Roman Reigns is as he's Roman Reigns, but whenever they look at Jey Uso, they go, "Which one are you?" And for me, that really set him apart, and it showed me that he can carry storylines. And in every single storyline, he's tried his hardest to make Roman look great. And it's easy to make yourself look great, but it's extremely hard to make somebody else look great while still looking like a legit person. I think that his mic work over every single segment that he's ever had with Roman, his acting is top tier. And Roman has the look, he has the charisma, he has the ring ability, he has everything. But I think in terms of storytelling, the Jey Uso's helped a lot. And Jimmy's helped a lot in the past few weeks, but he's only been doing it the past few weeks, whereas Jay's been doing it since last August or September.
Yeah. No, Jey Uso has been highly underrated. People don't realize how much of an asset he's been to this storyline. And also his in-ring work, like none of us realized it was this good before this run. He's been fantastic in it. His matches with he's had several matches with Roman's opponents before Roman's had them, and they've been great on SmackDown as well. And of course, the Hell in a Cell match with Roman, that was so good. That was prop. I mentioned this so much at the time. I went on about it for months, but how good that storytelling was. How almost felt like everyone was kids again watching that, because it's a proper good storyline. It was something they've never done before when that type of situation. And that's what we need to see more of in WWE. But overall, I kind of do agree with that opinion. Because Roman Reigns, his facial expressions and everything like that is fantastic, right? Don't get me wrong. But somebody such as Dragunov, you mentioned, his work, his work has been phenomenal. Like the emotion he's showing constantly, the way he's portrayed himself, he's done it so he's done it slowly transitioned. Or his reign was kind of there 1 week, and then I can't joke, there the next. Because not 1 week. Sorry, he went away. Of course,
2 months, yeah.
Yeah, and then he came back, and then he was like that. There wasn't any transition as such, and it doesn't matter that there wasn't any. Right? I liked it the way that they jumped to it, but it's a lot harder to transition it naturally, and that is what Elijah Dragunov has done. Somebody across here said Gargano. Gargano is his facial expressions and everything again with the champ and all that. They were fantastic. Who else did you mention? Oh yeah, Jey Uso, and Jey Uso has been a huge asset to the story, as I said a minute ago. It's I do agree, and I think Roman Reigns is a phenomenal storyteller. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah, but I do think there are a few others as good. Before we go to the next thing, do you reckon Walter's dropping the title in 2 weeks?
Oh, most definitely, and I will be watching. I'm gonna try to get all my friends to watch too. I'm expecting it to be a possible match of the year.
Well, it probably will be. I think it's 2 weeks' time. Is it 2 weeks today?
2 weeks from today, I believe, or 1 week. Either 1 week or 2 weeks from today. I'm not exactly sure.
Hopefully, it's 1 week, as I'm away in 2 weeks' time. I don't want to miss that. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be an absolute banger. The last match was as well. I wish they waited. The thing is, they could go full capacity crowd in 2 weeks, but they're not going to, because they've taped it already. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know for certain they've taped the match, but they've done the latest taping just past weekend, and they had no fans. Like, you can have a full arena now. Well, sorry,
Yeah.
as of next week in England. Like, you can literally pack in, you can have a full takeover.
I was even
And
thinking that they could have flew them out to the CWC
they
like
could
they
have,
did with
yeah.
Walter earlier this year.
Did they have an NXT UK match on in the CWC?
It was Walter versus Ciampa, but
Okay.
for the UK title.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean, yeah. Yeah, I'm not happy about it. Even though the last match was the best empty arena match, I
Mhm.
just still it would have been better with a full crowd this time. And they
Yeah,
could
no, I
have done
agree.
it too. I don't understand why they haven't. If they're doing it in the States where, let's be real here, COVID is still very much an issue.
Oh yeah,
In
no,
the
it
UK
is.
in the UK, almost 85% of people are vaccinated now, fully vaccinated. So it'd be pretty safe to do it. There's still obviously COVID, is an issue. But Jay Cure said Walter versus Dragunov is next week.
So you get to watch it.
I do. That's great.
July 22nd.
But it
Awesome.
was definitely taped then. But yeah, that's gonna be such a good match. That is gonna be very entertaining. I cannot wait to check that out. Now, to finish things off with the last opinion, we're going to go on Money in the Bank after it.
Mhm.
This is submitted by @itsjustdxp on Instagram. Honestly, Bullet Club aren't as good as they used to be. Now, there's several ways of looking at this, right? I presume we're going to base it off used to be, as in the original Bullet Club, Devitt, all them. Now, there's a couple ways you can look at this. First of all, you can compare it to, the Bullet Club now compared to the Bullet Club a couple of years ago with Kenny and all them. I think it's better now. Because the Bullet Club, it lost what it was about, right? However, the Bullet Club now has also lost what it's about from the original the original stable. The original idea was, they interrupted at times. They used a lot of heel tactics or whatever, and they were brothers essentially. That's what they were. They helped each other out. They piss off the fans, all that type of thing. But they weren't taking constant ref bumps. They weren't doing the same thing every match, and they weren't having Gado influences Gadoism into it. And yeah, that's the way it is. I mentioned it before. I mentioned nearly every week now that I'm not a fan of Gadoism, which, if you guys know what it is, in Japan, basically, you put ism at the end of the person's name, Anokiism, all that type of thing, and that's basically how you describe someone's booking. And I've not been a fan of Gado's booking at all, if I'm being honest. He's done certain things really well. The Will Ospreay stuff I thought was done really well. The fact he put the title on Shingo most recently was really good. But for the most part, I think that he makes pushes and all that a bit late. And a lot of time he relies on repetitive stuff. And he also pushes this idea of this constant interruption idea that he thinks goes down well with the United States fans, because it doesn't go down well in Japan. I know so many Japanese fans living in Japan who just go to events, see this, and they're not annoyed, or they are annoyed, but they're annoyed in a way that they don't want to go back and watch another show, because they're just like, well, constant ref bump here. And I know they've kind of taken Bullet Club out of the main event picture because of this. Even with Ospreay, they were doing it a little bit, which I didn't like. Not as often, though, so I didn't have as much of an issue. But Bullet Club now, they're no longer annoying to watch, but also interesting to watch. They're now just annoying to watch. And Jay White's great at telling stories, and when he gets given a good match, and there's a good story behind it. Sorry, Jay White, that's another great storyteller. Like we were talking about a minute ago.
Yes,
He's another
I was
one.
just thinking that.
Yeah, he does great then, but a lot of the time as well, it's just the Bullet Club stuff just over the top, and it takes away from the enjoyment. It's the point where now I see an Ishimori match on the card, and I'm not excited. I didn't even watch his latest.
Which is crazy because he's so good.
Yeah, exactly. With his ref bump, he barely does anything, and it's just like Prince Devitt, when he was doing everything, he was going everywhere. But then towards the end of the match, or something, Gallows takes them out where the referee's got his back turned, punch to the face. Devitt sets up his finisher, hits it. Maybe they kick out then, but then down the line, the fact that they were attacked then essentially, adds some credibility to the loss and makes them look a bit stronger. Pierce has commented here saying, Bullet Club hasn't been good since AJ departed, to be honest. The Elite era was woeful and drove the faction into the ground. Finally, have been in the resurgence lately, but it'll never restore its glory. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I still don't think it's proper resurgence lately, as they're just... Also, the original point in Bullet Club was for them all to be Gaijins. People who weren't from Japan. And they now all are basically from Japan. So
the only people who aren't are the leaders. And even Evil led the Bullet Club for a little bit.
They don't have a leader too, which is... they originally never had a leader, they say. Carl Anderson says. But it kind of always was Prince Devitt.
Yeah.
But yeah, they said that, and then Kenny Omega came in and was like, I'm the leader or whatever. And that Civil War storyline could have been a bit better, to be honest. But yeah, it wasn't. Maybe they should have had Jay White come into Bullet Club before they did the Civil War storyline, so then he could, be the lead and go against Kenny Omega. But of course, I don't think they had that much time in it because they knew Omega was leaving for what ended up being All Elite Wrestling. But somebody's saying they have a good honest lead for next week. Well, yeah, you can submit it on Instagram page, and we pick the best two every week. But yeah, no, I do agree with this person in a lot of ways. I agree with this person. The original thing was Bullet Club aren't as good as they used to be. I 100% agree. But
Same.
I think that they're better than they were in the Elite era in terms of they're more like Bullet Club now. But they were more entertaining in the Elite era, even though they weren't, what Bullet Club was supposed to be. At least it wasn't constant ref bumps, Gato getting involved, half the roster being part of Bullet Club. That frustrated me a bit. What are your thoughts?
So in terms of mainstream and popularity amongst fans in the United States, or I don't know, possibly even Europe, I don't think that it's anywhere close to as popular as it was back when Kenny, AJ, or the Bucks were in the Bullet Club.
Yeah.
My friends that I have probably couldn't even name anybody besides Jay White, and they only know Jay White because I've mentioned Jay White before. I don't think that they could tell me that Ishimori is in the Bullet Club or even Evil. So they don't have that many people of name value right now. And the people who they do have of name value, except Jay White, most of their matches, like you said, feel repetitive or feel boring, especially with the constant ref bumps. Like watching the G1 this past year with Evil and the Bullet Club, I hated watching every single B block match that had Evil in it. They were so unentertaining. The Jay White matches are a little bit more entertaining, but I think that's because Jay White's just naturally a fantastic.
I didn't even like the Jay White or Kenta matches either. I thought that they were dead repetitive as well. And I loved the Jay White. I loved the Jay White Wrestle Kingdom. Wrestle Kingdom match with Kota Ibushi. Yeah, I loved that. But for the most part, it's just too long, constant ref bumps and stuff, which is frustrating because it's a bit of a waste of his talent. But then when it's done right, like in big moments when it's done right, but like with Kota Ibushi, it works really well. But it's just at times it doesn't work as well. But yeah, I agree there. Okay. So before we get into let's just get straight into it right now. Money in the Bank this Sunday. Crowds are back. Crowds back tomorrow, actually, for Friday Night SmackDown. Do you reckon there'll be any surprises for that?
On SmackDown tonight or tomorrow night?
Pardon?
You said for SmackDown tomorrow night. Any surprises?
Yeah. Any surprises on SmackDown tomorrow?
I don't think there'll be any surprises on SmackDown. Maybe Sasha returns. But I think that'll also be next Friday. So I think for right now they're just gonna keep the matches how they are. I think they'll have the three they advertise, and maybe like Cesaro versus Corbin. But other than that, I don't think that they're gonna have any surprises. I just think they're just kind of try to put on the best episode they can with the people they have.
Yeah, I probably say the same there. Apart from one thing, I think Becky might return after the women's title match.
Really?
I think she'll be on SmackDown now, mainly because Seth's there.
Oh yeah,
That's
I
a big
forgot that.
reason behind that. And I think that now, especially with the fact they have a child, they're going to need to be together.
Hmm.
Now, maybe they could just wait a couple of months and then move Seth back. They could easily do that. But
If Rollins was to win Money in the Bank, I could see Rollins moving to Raw.
yeah, it could. Yeah, of course, he's in the match. Yeah, I could also see that. But I still think she's going to appear on SmackDown now with the fact that they got a lack of. They've lost Bailey, which is a big blow.
Hmm.
They still have a much better division than Raw do, but they need
Oh yeah.
SmackDown to be better because SmackDown is the A show. So
Hmm.
that's my personal prediction is that Becky's going to return on Friday. Sasha, I think probably going to be the week after or something. And I don't know what they're going to do with that. That'll be interesting for sure. But now moving on to Money in the Bank, we'll quickly run through our predictions, which I know we don't usually do on the Honestly podcast, but we've got a bit of time to spare, so we might as well go through it. A bit of a throwback to the Wrestling Public podcast days. So the men's Money in the Bank ladder match: Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, Drew McIntyre, Big E, Kevin Owens, King Nakamura, Seth Rollins. Who do you think is going to win and why?
So I have Riddle winning. Now, I think that WWE, as we talked about earlier, realized that they need to make stars. And you could go with Rollins. I think that Rollins would be a good pick here because Rollins is Rollins and he's still pretty young. So it's not like he's going to retire in the next 2 years. But I think that if you want to make a new star, Riddle is the way to go, especially with this thing that they got with Randy Orton.
How old is Riddle?
Riddle's 35, I believe, or
Oh, that's
36.
not as bad as I thought. I
Yeah.
by the way, I have a feeling we've got the exact same prediction on this, right? Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're gonna go the same way here, but I have Riddle turning on Randy eventually.
Oh,
Um,
different way.
yeah. And I have Randy going over. Basically, rerun everything with Seth and Orton. How Randy beat Seth at WrestleMania 31, and then Seth cashed in later that night and became champion. I have Randy going over on Riddle, and then Riddle within the next week beating the WWE champion to become world champion, which can set up a later Orton versus Riddle feud because Riddle never beat Orton. So I think that's a smart direction that they can go, or they can have Orton be the heel and have Riddle cash in as a face. I just think that if they're going to push a younger and newer star, I think that Riddle is the person they should go with.
My prediction is also Riddle, but this is I think it's going to go a completely different way. I reckon Riddle is going to win the briefcase. Then next night on Raw or even at the event, Randy Orton comes, RKO's him, takes him out, and blames him for not having a spot in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Riddle then will be all upset and everything and give Orton an opportunity for the briefcase where they face each other in a one-on-one match, and Orton will win it. Orton will then go on, win the championship, and Riddle will earn his way to get a championship shot and eventually, as the babyface, win the WWE Championship.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I hopefully then the fans wouldn't turn. Did I break up then?
What? No, you didn't.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that would be fantastic if that is what they did. Because fans likely wouldn't turn on Riddle in that situation either. And of course,
At WrestleMania, whenever I was there, the fans loved Riddle. Like he got a huge reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. He's super likable. And that way as well, Randy Orton gets another championship reign, which of course he wants because they're going to do the Cena versus Orton thing, presumably, in like a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Next one, Money in the Bank. Oscar versus Naomi versus Alexa Bliss versus Nikki Ash, formerly known as Nikki Cross, versus Liv Morgan versus Zelina Vega versus Natalia versus To Be Dated. Now, I'm going to go first on this one. I believe that Sonya Deville is absolutely going to be the last woman in here. But I don't think she's going to win. Yeah, I don't think she's going to win. I'm actually going to go with Zelina Vega. I reckon.
Really?
I reckon this is so much. I think it was part of the deal. Her coming back was the fact that she wins Money in the Bank, and then beats, or maybe doesn't beat Bianca, but has like a proper feud with her.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the Sonya thing, she's simply going to come in, not win the match, and then they're going to do that long program with her against Liv Morgan, and that'll be very interesting. to see, and she probably will cost Liv Morgan in the match as well. That's my other prediction. What do you think?
Honestly, as long as it's not Alexa Bliss, I'm good with it. I think that if I had to pick, I'm going with Alexa though, just because it sounds so stupid, but I could see her using like magical powers or whatever.
That would not go down well with the crowd. I'm
No.
glad that the crowd's back because that shit is not gonna go down well anymore.
No, but I could definitely see it. However, who I think Alexa, but if I had to pick somebody else, I would probably pick Liv. Just because I think that they might have her hold the briefcase for a little while, but feuding with people like Carmella, Sonya, people will constantly put her down and like say that she's not good enough and whatever, and then she eventually wins the title from, I don't know, Sasha or another heel. Yeah, there aren't very many good options this year, honestly.
Yeah, there aren't.
Like, I don't think that Asuka should win the title again. I don't think Naomi's a good option. Natalia's a little, her ring rust is starting to show.
What brand is Natalia on?
SmackDown. I know. Yeah. It's a little confusing.
I'm trying to see it. Wait, Naomi's Raw, is she?
Yes.
Oh, never mind. Ignore me. I was getting confused. I was thinking then. Wait a second. The eighth woman is actually Raw, but no, it's not. It is SmackDown. I was also confused, but why on earth, when I was reading that, why is Liv in this match? Actually, I completely forgot what happened last week because Carmella was taken out.
Because of Bayley.
Yeah, this week on SmackDown. And the fact that they've done that as well does make me believe that Becky's returning. That's why I think they are doing that, because they put that match on, set up the pay-per-view on SmackDown. But next match, we spoke this briefly earlier, Bobby Lashley versus Kofi. I want Kofi to win, and I think it'd be a nice surprise. I'd also like a Big E cash in, like I said about, but that's not going to happen in a million years. Business-wise, it's a terrible move.
Yeah.
Booking-wise, it's quite entertaining. So I'm going with a Lashley retain. Yeah, what do you think?
So first of all, this is a pretty cool match because it's the first WWE Championship match ever featuring two black men. Yes. So that's a very big deal. But I have Lashley retaining because I think that WWE has hope for Lashley versus Lesnar at some point. Or at least, I mean, Lashley up to this point has been very entertaining for me. I don't know about everybody else, but I've really enjoyed him as champion, even before he won the title. When he was United States champion. He's been one of the best parts of Raw for me for a long time. And like I said, this past Monday, he was awesome. And I normally hate champions losing, and I hated it when it happened. But what it led to at the end of Raw was amazing. And I think that Lashley should keep the title, but I wouldn't be exactly upset if Kofi won the title. But my prediction's Lashley.
Yeah, I completely agree there. And the next match is, I'm really glad they held out to now to do the match. And that is, well, they didn't hold out, but now that they're properly doing it now. They're gonna probably have a winner now. Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte, of course, was meant to happen at last year's WrestleMania, but instead, well, it did happen, but it happened with no fans. And of course, Rhea was really excited for it all. And now doing it again. First pay-per-view back with fans. If you exclude, first pay-per-view back with fans at full capacity. I think this is gonna be great. Will Rhea get revenge on Charlotte? I'm going to be honest, I don't think so. I think Charlotte's going to win again. And I think they're going to then do a redemption arc with Rhea once again. What do you think?
I've been waiting for them to do a redemption story in this sense. I find it weird that Rhea has the title and Charlotte doesn't, and they're doing a redemption. It's just, it hasn't really worked out for me. I'd love Charlotte versus Becky at SummerSlam because that's classic. But if they're going to involve Rhea in the match at SummerSlam, make it a triple threat, I would really like Rhea to retain here because I don't want Charlotte to just have just be like, oh, I've won 14 titles now, and this was just like a month-long reign or not even. And it's just one of those things that doesn't mean anything. Not that Rhea's reign has been good because it really hasn't been that good, but it hasn't been terrible. And I think that her holding the title for another month could possibly help her, especially if she gets into promo battles with Becky if Becky was to go to Raw, because that's where I think this is leading.
Yeah. I think that would be Charlotte, or we were involved even like with throwing back Lynch in the mix would be really helpful for the Women's division, but I still don't see it happening because even for 2 months, I don't think they're going to separate Seth and Beck, considering they just had a child. Maybe they will, but it would be a bit harsh to be honest. Because it's hard enough when both of you are touring and have a baby.
For sure.
But next match, AJ Styles and Omos versus Viking Raiders. What's your prediction for this?
Oh, this is on Raw, I thought, or did they move it to Money in the Bank?
Maybe it is. It's currently listed for Money in the Bank.
Oh wow. Okay. I have AJ Styles and Omos.
Yeah.
I wasn't really expecting this match, but I see RK Bro taking the titles from AJ and Omos. That's what I see. So
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And I think the turn's going to happen. Wait, so did you say Riddle or Norton?
Yeah, RK Bro.
Yeah. I think the turn's going to happen quicker than that. But
they came out with merch, and I just can't picture them doing the Y2. I can't picture them doing the Y2 AJ thing again. I don't see that.
Yeah. Now getting on to the main event, we got about another 2 minutes to talk about this. Roman Reigns versus Edge. Roman Reigns is winning, isn't he? I think post match, I'm hoping Cena comes out. It's gonna be a perfect ending to pay-per-view, but that'll probably be next Friday on SmackDown. Mm-hmm. But I think this is gonna be a great match, and Reigns is gonna walk out the winner, dominant winner, ending Money in the Bank. Looking dominant as always. I doubt you disagree, do you?
No, but I think it's pretty interesting that Roman's opponents his past 3 opponents were Rey Mysterio, Edge, and John Cena. It's like Roman Reigns versus 2010 wrestlers. But I think it's gonna be a really good match because Edge and Roman Reigns are both insanely great wrestlers, and Roman's gonna retain, and either Cena's gonna challenge him after or probably on SmackDown. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that though. That's probably gonna be the match of the night. Like, that's my prediction for match of the night is Roman and Edge, just because I think the crowd's gonna be wild.
Yeah, I agree too. My prediction is gonna be the ladder match, the man's ladder match. I think that's gonna rule because everyone in it.
This is a takeover worthy card.
Yeah, Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, Drew McIntyre, Big E, Kevin Owens, Nakamura, Rollins. That might be the best ladder match in
I think it is, except 2013.
Yeah, it's filthy. But that's all we have time for this week, guys. Thank you for joining me, Kota, and thank you to all of you guys who have watched this whole episode. We appreciate you, and you can watch it fully back on Instagram TV and on YouTube throughout the week. We also have clips uploaded to the YouTube channel, as well as clips uploaded to Instagram TV. Thank you, guys, and we will be back next Thursday where we'll get into Money in the Bank, SmackDown, and Raw, everything that's happened since, AEW as well. A lot's happening right now, and it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. See you guys.